Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the press conference on the cabinet lineup. May I now invite the DPM Wong to deliver his remarks, please.
Good afternoon. I met President Tharman earlier today and accepted the invitation to form the next government of Singapore. I also informed the President of the new cabinet lineup, which I will be announcing today. In assembling this team, I have consulted my colleagues and have sought to balance the need for continuity and renewal. Continuity and stability are key considerations, especially as we are approaching the end of this term of government. All the ministers already have a full plate of work to see through, and some have also just rolled out new programs in their ministries. So to avoid any disruptions, I have decided to keep them in their present roles until the end of the term. And that means I too will retain my portfolio in finance even after becoming Prime Minister. As I had shared previously, both Mr. Lee Hsien Loong and Mr. Teo Chee Hean will be senior ministers in cabinet, and Mr. Teo will also continue as the coordinating minister for national security. As Prime Minister, I will be supported by two Deputy Prime Ministers. Mr. Heng Swee Keat will continue as Deputy Prime Minister, and he will oversee the technology and R&D portfolios in his capacity as Chairman of the NRF. Mr. Gan Kim Yong will be promoted to Deputy Prime Minister. He will take over from me as Chairman of the MAS and will assume responsibility of the strategy group in the Prime Minister's office, which coordinates our policies and plans across the government. I've known both Kim Yong and Swee Keat for many years. I value their advice and counsel, and I'm glad that they will be supporting me as my deputies. Swee Keat, you already know his record in government. We entered politics together in 2011 and worked together in MOE and MOF, as well as in national exercises like the Our Singapore Conversation. Kim Yong, we went through the COVID baptism of fire together, and he was a pillar of strength throughout. Through the course of working together, we've come to get to know each other's working styles better, and in this period of increased geopolitical tensions, his experience in international economics will also help us navigate a more contested global environment. Both Kim Yong and Swee Keat are experienced ministers and will provide a steady hand in this initial period of transition. I will be able to tap on their views and expertise as I take on my new responsibility, and they will also help me to mentor our younger office holder colleagues. Aside from the ministers, I am renewing the lineup for the rest of the team. I am making 3 promotions amongst the junior office holders. Ms. Low Yen Ling and Mr. Desmond Tan will be promoted to Senior Ministers of State, and Ms. Rahayu Mazam will be promoted to Minister of State. I am bringing 2 backbenchers into government. Mr. Murali Pillay will be appointed as Minister of State in the Ministry of Law and Ministry of Transport, and Mr. Sean Huang will be appointed as Senior Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance. On the whole, we have a strong team with a good mix of both experienced ministers and younger office holders. Amongst the 4G ministers, some have been in office for several terms, a number entered politics at around the same time as me, and others are still relatively new in their roles. I will be working and interacting with all of them. And beyond this term, if my government is re-elected, I plan to rotate the 4G ministers to different portfolios and give them wider exposure and experience. Amongst them, I'm sure some will be able to step up and take over from their senior colleagues in due course. Likewise, amongst the junior office holders, there will be a few who will be able to take on larger responsibilities. But we will still need more fresh blood, as some of the older ministers are likely to retire, either at the end of this term or shortly after. And so I'm actively looking for new candidates with the potential to be office holders. I aim to further renew and strengthen the team with new members, especially men and women in their 30s and 40s. There is no higher priority for me, and that is to form the best possible team to serve Singapore and Singaporeans. Overall, we have a full agenda ahead of us to keep Singapore safe and secure, to tackle the immediate concerns of Singaporeans around cost of living and jobs, and to translate our Forward Singapore aspirations into concrete programs for the benefit of all Singaporeans. More and more, many of the issues we deal with will involve close linkages between the economy and the society. And so I'll be working closely with both Deputy Prime Ministers and the Ministers to review and coordinate our policies across multiple fronts. And we will also be engaging closely with our partners, especially the labour movement and NTUC, as well as other stakeholders. We are fully committed to working with all Singaporeans to chart our new way forward. This is my first press conference as the Prime Minister designate. We will have more press conferences in the future. I intend to do more to engage you, the media, and through you, the public at large. I will also engage with the public directly, including different segments of society. Through these engagements, I hope to share my thinking on key concerns and issues that are on the minds of Singaporeans. And I also would like to listen, get feedback and views, and get inputs as to how we can best shape new policies and programs together. So I look forward to involving all Singaporeans so that we can take Singapore forward together.
May we now invite Minister Gan to deliver remarks.
Thank you. First, I would like to join my colleagues to thank Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong for his dedication and commitment in his service to Singapore and Singaporeans. Over the last 2 decades, Prime Minister Lee and his team have laid a very strong foundation for Singapore, which has given us the confidence to face the increasingly complex and challenging future. I also want to thank PM Lee personally for his mentorship. I have the privilege to serve all 3 Prime Ministers. First, as a civil servant under Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, then as an MP under Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong, and then as a minister under Prime Minister Lee. PM Lee has been a great leader and a nurturing mentor to me, and under his leadership, Singapore has become a much caring and inclusive society. I've learned much under his leadership, and I'm sure we will continue to benefit from his wisdom and his advice as a senior minister in the new cabinet as we go forward. I'm grateful and humbled that the incoming Prime Minister Wong has asked me to continue serving as a member of his new cabinet. Although I'm not quite 4G, as many of you know, it is indeed my honor to be given this opportunity, and I will do my best to support the new Prime Minister and his team. It has been a pleasure working with Lawrence, first as a fellow MP in neighboring wards. He's in Marsiling UT and I'm in Choa Chu Kang GRC. We are adjacent to one another. We did many things together, many local projects together to benefit our residents. Then as colleagues in the cabinet, and later as co-chairs in the MTF during the pandemic. And I've seen his strong leadership, particularly in the midst of crisis. And now he has become Singapore's 4th Prime Minister to lead the new cabinet and Singapore forward. As Minister for Trade and Industry, I will continue to focus on economic issues. I will work with various economic agencies and ministries to navigate through the increasingly complex and challenges ahead of us. I will strengthen the resilience of our economy, create more opportunities for our businesses and our people, and help our enterprises to develop and nurture. At the same time as DPM, I will support the Prime Minister. I will work with DPM Heng and across various ministries and agencies to coordinate the whole of government approach to formulate and implement key policies. The strategy group will help to assess and review these policies to ensure that they are consistent and appropriate. Together with DPM Heng, I will do my best to support the Prime Minister and help my younger colleagues in whichever way I can to build a strong team that will lead us forward. Thank you.
May we now invite remarks from DPM Heng. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, members of the media, first, let me join Kim Yong and colleagues to thank Prime Minister Lee for his decades of outstanding public service, and in particular, his last 2 decades as our Prime Minister. I think I've given several interviews to the media on what I saw as PM Lee's biggest contribution to Singapore and what he had done for us. So I think I will not repeat this. Now, like Kim Yong, I've been privileged to work closely with 3 Prime Ministers. I was the PPS to then Senior Minister Lee Kuan Yew. I learned a lot during that period, particularly during the Asian financial crisis. I was as a Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Trade and Industry. I worked closely to support Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong then for various meetings, including in APEC and in ASEAN. And then Prime Minister Goh was also my chairman at the MES during the global financial crisis, and with Prime Minister Lee since my entry into politics in 2011. In fact, Lawrence and I entered politics together in 2011, and we've been working very closely in the Ministry of Education and later in the Ministry of Finance. And I particularly appreciate Lawrence's support during the COVID pandemic, especially in the year 2020 when we had to roll out 5 budgets in just 1 year. And Lawrence was a pillar of support during that time in rolling out this budget, one budget after another. Now, also I've been working very closely with Kim Yong. So I'm very happy that Lawrence has appointed Kim Yong as the other Deputy Prime Minister. In fact, Kim Yong and I worked very closely when I was in the Ministry of Finance and he was at the Ministry of Health, rolling out the various packages, Pioneer Generation and the Merdeka Generation. And even before that, we were working together on the Community Network for Seniors. So I've known Kim Yong and worked with Kim Yong since my entry into politics. So we work very closely together, both of us. I'm very happy to continue my role as the Chairman of National Research Foundation and to work closely with both Prime Minister Wong and Deputy Prime Minister Gan on our economy, in particular the future of our economy, looking at what are the new growth areas, particularly those enabled by progresses in science, technology, and innovation. So there's a lot of work that we will need to do, and both Kim and I will give our support to our incoming Prime Minister Lawrence to bring Singapore together to work on these various critical issues facing the country, and also to work with our younger colleagues to help to develop another generation of leadership so that together with Singaporeans, we can take Singapore forward. Also, I hope to work very closely together with our academics in our universities, in our research institutes, and public officers in public service. I've actually spent more time in public service earlier than as a political appointee, so I think I have a good sense of how the public service operates and how we can mobilize everyone to support these changes that are going forward, and also to tackle the many challenges that we face, and then to work with our counterparts that we have worked with over these years to bring progress and to solve challenges that can bring benefit to all of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists. We'll now take questions from the media. We'll call on your outlets. When you are called upon, please state your name before you ask your question. Straits Times, please.
DPM Wong, Jamie from the Straits Times. As you said, this is very much a cabinet, status quo cabinet aimed at bringing your government to the next GE in the name of stability and continuity. But I want to look beyond that, and bearing in mind the GE, do you have a number in mind in terms of the potential office holder candidates that you want to bring in to strengthen your candidate now that you have this candidate, cabinet in hand? Secondly, in terms of the types of qualities that you hope to see and both strengthening your cabinet, much has been said about the increasingly fraught geopolitical environment around us. Do you see some strengthening needed there, both in terms of individuals as well as the ministries involved in those issues? Thank you very much.
It's not so much a specific number. Clearly, I need as many as I can get. It's not just about, I mean, every election that we enter into, you know that the PAP will renew our slate of candidates. Quite a number of them will be MPs retiring and stepping down. But amongst the candidates that we bring in, we do want to have a good crop who can be potential office holders. Some we can identify perhaps a potential early on, and then when they come in, we immediately put them into office. But others, not so straightforward, and then they serve as MPs for a while, and then over a period of time, they do well. We bring them in from the back bench into office holder positions, as I am doing now with Murali and Sean Huang. So the same, we expect to do the same. I expect to do the same in the coming round. We have been talking to many individuals, engaging them, and hopefully come the GE, we will be able to field yet again a very strong slate of candidates to serve as potential MPs and potential office holders. In terms of where I can strengthen the team, to begin with, I think we already have a very strong team today, as I mentioned just now. A good team that's made up of both experienced ministers and younger office holders. And even amongst the 4G ministers, there is a range. Some have been in office for more than a term, while others are still relatively new. And amongst the junior office holders today, whether it's MOS and or SMS, I think some will have potential to take on larger responsibilities later on, as I said just now too. So we have a good team today, but you have to keep on renewing the team and make sure that there are fresh blood, younger people coming in, because I fully expect that down the road, some of the senior ministers will retire or will ask to retire, maybe during the GE, maybe shortly after the GE. And so if you take that into consideration, it means there will be gaps to fill. And some of these gaps can be filled by existing office holders, but we also need new people to come in. And so we are actively looking for people, both in the public as well as the private sector. And this process continues. In fact, it's, you know, we always said in the PAP, right after the next the election, the next day, we are already thinking about the next one, and the tea sessions already start. We engage widely. We invite people to join us. This process has been going on for quite some time, and I look forward to being able to present to Singaporeans in due course when the GE comes, our slate of candidates.
Thank you. Next question from Zhao Bao, please.
Hi, good afternoon, DPM. Kayang from Zhao Bao. We noticed that there are 9 SMSs this time in the lineup. It's quite a big number, and some of them has been appointed for quite some time. So what are the considerations in, you know, not appointing them as 2M at the moment? And since you already said there's a lot of things to do, why not spread the work around more? Thanks.
Sure. Well, I've also not had the chance to interact with them in a capacity as Prime Minister and to assess their full range of work, to be fair. So rather than rush into making appointments now, I think it's better for me to take on my new appointment first, have the chance to interact more fully with all the junior office holders. And then over a period of time, when I've assessed who can contribute at a larger level, take on a larger role and have impact at the ministry, then I will consider at that point in time making the promotions. I do think, as of now, that there will be a few who can take on larger responsibilities. It's not just at the ministerial level, because there will be promotions at multiple levels. You could have PALSECs who do well, who become ministers of state. You could have ministers of states moving up to one level above, and then eventually an SMS, we assess that that individual is capable of running the ministry by himself or herself, then we might consider a promotion to be a full minister. I think I need that time to assess, to interact with all of them in my new capacity before I make those promotion decisions.
Thank you. Next question from CNA, please.
Hi DPM, this is Shalin from CNA. So you talked about looking at the contributions and whether the junior office holders could play a larger role. I'm wondering, for these recent round of promotions, were there any particular indicators you looked at, and why these specific ministries? And also, do you consult anyone in the process of making all these changes?
Sure. Well, this round of promotions, there are just 3 of them. It's something that already started even before I came into the picture, because the process would have started with PM Lee already engaging the ministers. We do this every year. We ask ministers to assess, to consider the junior officers they work with, and then we assess the list of names, and the Prime Minister will eventually make the decision whether or not to promote any particular office holder. This is a regular, usual process. This year, because of the transition and the handover, PM Lee had engaged me early on, and we had discussed. And so it's really together, both of us have together decided on the promotions for this round.
Thank you. Next question, CNA Digital.
Thank you. DPM Wong, I'm CK from CNA Digital. My first question is this an interim lineup pending the addition of further ministerial caliber candidates in the next GE? How many percentage would you say that this lineup is your ideal lineup? My second question is on the Defense Ministry. At the moment, there doesn't seem to be a clear understudy to Mr. Ng Heng. Can we find out your thinking?
A clear?
Understudy
Understudy.
to Minister Ng Heng. Can we find out your thinking behind not having a second minister, or are you looking for a successor to Dr. Ng, who is not yet in cabinet? Thank you.
It's not always the case that every ministry has a 2M who is an understudy. And it's not always the case that the 2M becomes a minister automatically either. Right. So yes, eventually down the road, as I said, some senior ministers will retire. You don't have to speculate who. I'm not saying who, but I'm saying amongst the senior ministers, in time to come, they will likely ask to retire. It could be at the GE, it could be after the GE, and I will have to look for successors to all those who step down. It doesn't have to be from the ministry. It could be from the existing pool of ministers we already have, and that's why I also mentioned after the GE, we will look at rotations of portfolios. We will look at possibilities of giving some of the 4G ministers wider exposure. Your first question was whether this was an interim sort of position. Well, as I mentioned at the very beginning, there is a need for continuity and stability, particularly since we are approaching the end of the term. And as I said, all the ministers have a full plate of work. Some have already embarked on new programs and initiatives. And so rather than making disruptive changes to portfolios, I've decided, in consultation with my colleagues, that we will keep all the ministerial portfolios unchanged this round until the end of the term.
Thank you. May we have the next question from Channel 8?
Hi, DPM, Pauline from Channel 8 News here. Earlier in Mr. Gan's opening remarks, he mentioned that he's not quite 4G. So I was wondering, what's your key consideration in appointing him as your deputy?
He is not 4G, not quite, he is not 4G. But that's okay, because as I mentioned just now, I am looking at ensuring continuity and stability while renewing the team. And I think for me, during this initial period of transition, it will be useful to have two more experienced ministers as my deputies. Swee Keat is already one of them, very experienced. His record in government, everybody knows, and I've worked so closely with him across MOE, finance, since we started entering politics together. So he is already there, but having one more person, I think as an experienced deputy would be very useful. So I've decided to have Kim Yong come alongside and join the team as the second deputy. And I think having these two experienced ministers to help us during this initial period of transition will be very useful to provide continuity and stability. I can rely on them for their advice and their counsel, and they can help me also to nurture and mentor the younger office holders.
Thank you. Next question, BH, please.
If I may add, although I'm classified as 4G, Kim Yong says he's not. Kim Yong is only 2 years older than me. But Kim Yong has entered politics since 2001. So I think this 3G, 4G, whatever, I think it's important for us to just look at the person and not get too obsessed with 3G and 4G.
Hello, Aisha here from Berita Harian. So my first question is a follow-up on the topic of the promotion of backbenchers. So do you think that this is a way to prepare them for bigger roles in the future? And my second question is with regard to the promotion of SPH Rahayu. So what was the push behind this move? Thank you.
Whenever we promote any office holder, it means that they have done well in their present roles, and we think that they are able to contribute at in a higher capacity. So that's a basis for promoting any office holder at whatever levels they are. I think Rahayu has done very well as a senior parliamentary secretary. If you look at the roles that she's been assigned to in Ministry of Law and Ministry of Health, she has taken on these roles with great enthusiasm, a lot of energy. She has applied herself, implemented the projects under her very well. In Parliament, she holds her own when she introduces legislation, answers PQs. On the ground in the community, she's also very effective in engaging. So all of these are reasons why we think she's suitable to be promoted as Minister of State. As to future roles, I mean, that really is a dynamic process. A promotion today doesn't mean an automatic promotion in the future. I mean, in the end, whether or not one can perform at a larger capacity, a larger role, will in the end depend on the individual, how they go about doing their, exercising their responsibilities, the impact they have in terms of the work they do, both the community impact as well as the national impact, and how they go about working, getting things done, delivering on the goals and the outcomes that they have been assigned. So we will continue to evaluate, but every member of the team, regardless of the role they have, every member of the team is valuable. Each one has a critical role to play. So it's not about comparing who is higher, who is lower, what roles, what positions people have. Everyone plays an important role, everyone is valued, and in the end, it's the collective effort that matters. And for all of us, it is really about synergizing the combined efforts of every individual so that the outcome for the team is better than the sum of the individual parts.
Thank you. Next from TM, please.
DPM Wong, I'm Raja Sega from Tamil Morasu. About 9 years ago, we introduced a coordinating minister for economic and social policy, which morphed into coordinating minister for social policy. Now it has disappeared. So I'm wondering, how would that portfolio be handled across the cabinet as social policies cut across various ministries? Thank you.
Sure. We do have a coordinating minister for national security, and that remains today under SMTO. I see that as more of a standing arrangement because national security, we have quite a number of existing structures in place. It's a very critical, very heavy responsibility, understandably, where security is concerned. We have these standing mechanisms and processes where agencies do come together to coordinate and make sure we operate effectively. And there you need a coordinating minister to oversee these standing processes. With other parts of the work, and you could think about infrastructure, we used to have a coordinating minister for infrastructure too, economy and social. I see them differently, not so much as standing arrangements, but from time to time, it has been useful to have a coordinating minister for each of these areas. And when a coordinating minister is appointed, that individual can bring together the different agencies under his charge, get agencies to work more effectively, coordinate the issues more effectively, and make a difference. And that's what, for example, Boon Wan did when he became coordinating minister for the infrastructure, and likewise, Swee Keat when he was coordinating minister for the economy. But the situation will vary and evolve over time, and with all of these areas, economy, infrastructure, social, I think more and more the issues are intertwined. It's not so siloed. Whenever you deal with an economic issues, you have to think about infrastructure. You also have to think about social impact. So the issues are becoming more interrelated. And also our coordinating mechanisms within the system have improved considerably. We have many more platforms where the agencies can come together to coordinate these three issues: infrastructure, economy, and social. And that's why, for now, I think there is no need for a coordinating minister for either the economy, infrastructure, or social policies. Of course, down the road, circumstances may change, new needs may evolve, and we will consider those in due course accordingly if there are new demands or circumstances change. But for now, between myself and the two DPMs, we will effectively coordinate our policies across the economy, social, and infrastructure, and work very closely with the relevant ministers as a team.
Next, please, BT.
Hi, Tessa from BT here. This question is for both DPM Heng and DPM Wong. Could you elaborate on the decision to no longer have a coordinating minister for economic policies, and also how this will change DPM Heng's role as a result?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Could you elaborate on why you guys decided to not have a coordinating minister for economic policies? I know you just kind of elaborated on it, but could you also kind of talk about how this will change DPM Heng's role as a result?
Well, I've already explained the considerations why we do not need a coordinating minister, but the roles are not changed at all. Effectively, between the DPMs, DPM Heng continues with the R&D portfolio. That's very clear. He continues with the economic transformation work as well. That's also very clear. But increasingly, as I said just now, some of this work is not just economic alone. When we talk about industry transformation, we also have to think about societal impact. We also have to think about displaced workers. There will be social considerations, social impact. And that's why we see this as really working together in a more integrated fashion, rather than have a coordinating minister for this area and that area, whether it's on the economic, social, or infrastructure side. I will work very closely with both DPMs, and we will work with the relevant ministers or ministries to look at the issues more holistically.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for last three questions. Can we have Shin Min? Shin Min.
Hi, DPM Wong. Eugene from Simin here. So earlier there was widespread anticipation regarding the possibility of a 4G minister being appointed to be one of the DPM positions, with some might interpreting this as a conservative move. So how do you respond to such interpretations? And then looking forward, what are some of the things that the incoming cabinet aim to achieve? Thank you.
I'm not aware. I mean, there can be widespread anticipation of many things. I don't second guess what people would speculate. I think I can only do what is, I think, in the best interest of Singapore and Singaporeans. And as I mentioned just now, with this cabinet lineup, I have focused very much on wanting to provide continuity and stability, considering that we are approaching the end of this term of government. And for me, in this initial period of transition, what's important is to have deputies who are more experienced, who can provide continuity and stability during this initial period and help nurture the younger office holders. As I have said just now, the 4G ministers, there are a range of them. They are all doing well. Some have more experience in government, others are still quite new. And over time, I am confident that some of them will be able to take over from their senior colleagues in due course. So I think I said that before. I'm going to reiterate the same points again. I think it's a question of balancing between continuity, stability, and renewal. On the priorities of this cabinet, considering that we are in the last stretch or this tail end of the term of government, our priorities are quite clear. We just want to focus on issues that are of concern to Singaporeans. Some of them are around cost of living and jobs. We have rolled out quite a number of initiatives in this year's budget. We will continue to see what more we can do through the rest of this term of government. There are also a range of plans that we have thought about as part of Forward Singapore in order to help translate the aspirations that we've distilled from Singaporeans into concrete policies and programs that will benefit every citizen and will bring us closer to our vision for what the Singapore that we would like to see in the future. Some of these Forward Singapore initiatives, again, have been rolled out, but as I had explained in this year's budget, what we have done so far is just the first installment of our Forward Singapore plans. There will be more to come, and to the extent that some of these plans are ready, we will certainly share more in the months to come what we would like to do in this for the rest of this term of government. But there will be also plans that will take longer. Some are medium-term plans, and some of these can only materialize in the next term. So there will be more announcements, more information that we'll be happy to share in the future.
Thank you. Mothership, please.
Hi, good afternoon, DPM. I'm Martino from Mothership. DPM, can you share more about the renaming of the Ministry of Communications and Information to Digital Development and Information? Is this an effort to allow the ministry to better engage the young Singaporeans who are digital natives? And a second question, DPM, can you share more about how you use press conference and involve the Singapore media in engaging Singaporeans in future? Thank you.
On the first question, it's not just a renaming exercise. You will know that we set up SNDGO, the Smart Nation Digital Government Office, as well as GovTech under Prime Minister's office a few years ago, and we've made a lot of progress on that front. But the digitalization effort is not just about government. I think the digital technologies will be a big enabler for us to transform our economy and also to improve our lives for everyone in society. And so some of these efforts are not just done by PMO, GovTech, or SNDGO, they are also led by MCI. So rather than do it separately, we thought it was better administratively to bring these efforts together as part of a coherent national digital strategy. And I think it's time for us to do so. We had to start SNDGO and GovTech in PMO in the early days to give it a push. But now that we have made progress, I think it's timely to bring it all together under one roof. And that's why the efforts to bring it together under MCI, to really pay attention to our national digitalization strategies, which would include new areas like AI and other digital technologies. And when you do that, when you synergize these efforts, it's not just a name, I mean, it's substantially a significant change in mindset orientation for the ministry, but that's why when you do so, you want to have a new name to reflect this new mindset and this new orientation. The new MDDI, of course, still covers media and information, so that is still important, and I'm sure they will continue to engage closely with all our media establishment and friends. That remains their function, but really to give a strong signal and push on our digitalization efforts, I think the organizational and name change will be useful. On press conferences, it's really to say that I see a purpose and something useful in having such sessions. We did it with great frequency during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not planning to do it like that. Please don't misunderstand. There are no plans to have that level of frequency of press conferences. But I think from time to time, when there's something to share, when there's some new developments, new thinking, I think it would be useful for me to meet with the media in a press conference like this, either myself or with the relevant ministers, just to share our thinking, just to let you know what's happening, and through you, explain government's thinking and considerations to the public at large. We've certainly found it useful during the pandemic, and I think going forward, having a few of these press conferences where it is relevant and necessary, I think will come in useful. Of course, it's not just engaging the media through, I mean, it's not just press conferences alone. Like I said just now, we will also think of other platforms where we can engage with the public directly. Overall, I would certainly look at going forward, wanting to think of ways we can harness the collective energies of every Singaporean to take Singapore forward in an environment which will be in many ways more challenging because of the geopolitical cross currents that we face. But if you think about this, Singapore's success has never been about just one individual or one institution either. It's really about all of us working together as one united people. And I will certainly continue to look for ways where we can harness this collective strength of Singaporeans to chart our new way forward together.
Thank you, PM Designate. We have time for last follow-up from Zhao Bao to the panelists.
我是李慧玲，华文媒体集团。我的问题是要问两位副总理。严部长，您就是今天的这个场景，您又坐在这个副总理的旁边，会让人家想起就是冠病疫情期间的 MTF 的记者会。这次您在新的内阁当中会担任这个副总理，是这个我们叫做扶上马送一程。想请问您准备这一程要送多远？自己有什么样的目标想要达至的？想要问I would like to ask DPM Heng, you stepped aside as leader of the 4G earlier, and it made it possible for DPM Wong now to take over as Prime Minister. And now you have agreed to stay in the cabinet as his DPM to continue to support him. Can you share with us what went through your mind when you said, when you agreed to stay, and how do you see your role going forward?
或许让我先回答，这个扶上马，走多远，送一程。我想我的态度是，需要走多远，能走多远就走多远。我的态度是尽我所能，能够协助这个新的团队，黄总理所带领的这个新的团队，能够帮助他们能够建立一个非常坚强的一个团队，一个强壮的团队，能够带领新加坡继续走下去，这是我最重要的目的。当然，身为贸易工业部长，我还是有自己任内的工作，也不单只是扶持帮助我们的内阁跟我们的总理，同时也有分内的工作需要做得好。我想目前我们所面对的国际的环境是非常复杂，非常充满挑战，也充满了许多的不定数。所以在这一方面，我希望能够尽我所能，贡献出我一点的力量，能够帮助我们的经济能够更上一层楼，这是我的理想。那么对于我们的新的团队呢，我也有极大的信心，他们很快就能够胜任他们的新的任务。那么我最后最重要的呢，还是我们的新的领导黄总理最终要决定我的去留，因为我们的态度都是这样，就是说如果有需要我的地方，我会尽我的能力继续去做。那么如果黄总理觉得我已经可以功成身退了，我也很高兴能够随时把交棒让新的一代继续走下去。
Well, thanks. I think when I step aside, I think that was during the period of COVID, and I am very happy that the 4G leadership have selected Lawrence as the leader, and I think it's very important for us to have a very smooth transition. It is not a given in leadership succession. If you look around the world, this is not common, and I'm very happy that there has been such a smooth transition. And also, in fact, just yesterday, I commemorated my 8th anniversary of my stroke with a nice dinner with my wife and children. That I'm very grateful that the Singapore system has produced such excellent healthcare system that I survived, and is able to continue to work in the last 8 years to continue to serve in the cabinet, to serve Singaporeans. So what went through my mind in terms of the support when Lawrence spoke to me about supporting this transition? First, I'm delighted that Lawrence has been selected, and two, that he has an agenda going forward. To the best of my ability, I would support Lawrence in this very important transition. And also in the last 8 years, since chairing the Future Economy Council, I'm glad that the economy has made progress. And in fact, I've been working very closely with Kim Yong as the MTI Minister on many initiatives. And as we said earlier, in fact, it was not just the economy, because Kim Yong and I, together with Lawrence, have also been working closely on social-related issues. Now, going forward, I'm very happy to continue as chairman of National Research Foundation, and I would do my best in that area, because I think the future economy is going to be defined by science, technology, and innovation. And how do we bring the excellent research that's been going on in our universities, in our A-star institutes, in our public research institutions, together with what we've been doing in the economy, to really make this big transition, to make sure that the Singapore economy continues to be vibrant, competitive, that we can continue to create good jobs for our people, both seniors, where we are extending the retirement age, as well as the younger people who are better educated, who can pursue careers in the digital area, in the new economy areas. And I think that will be a very meaningful job going forward.
Thank you very much to our panelists.